Welcome back. Brand new episode of Your Wealth and Beyond, episode 119. Today I've got a good friend in the Dream Plan Retire studio, Blake Uptain. Welcome to the podcast. How are you today?
I'm awesome. Thank you for having me.
Super excited about our conversation today. Blake is a serial entrepreneur, owner of Moxie Bike Shop, Caffeine and Watts, and really the conversation today is going to center around your entrepreneurial journey, but also the journey of building these, performance-based communities, accountability, growth, your background in sales, all the things, both highs and lows that we all experience as business owners, and really passionate about today because it's tied around performance, and a lot of us entrepreneurs are what? Type A.
100%.
So we're going to dig into, what got you to leave the business world and the corporate side to start this entrepreneurial journey.
Awesome.
So welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So first and foremost, have you always been type A, performance, physical activity? Has that always been a passion of yours?
Yeah, I've always played sports, some from a young age, as long as I can remember. It pretty much shaped, how I go to market.
And when did you get into the triathlons and things of that nature?
2003, I found triathlon. I first heard the word. I come from a really small town in Alabama, and we don't do triathlons, or we did not do triathlons. I don't know if they still do there.
And right away, you knew that this was for a calling for you at that point?
I think for me, I just graduated college, and I wanted something to challenge myself with. I didn't have a sport at the time that was challenging myself. And someone said, you should check out triathlon. It's like the clock never stops until you cross the line. And that really intrigued me. When they said that, I was like, oh, so you're always racing the clock against yourself and others, but it's the clock.
And triathlons and Ironmans, they kind of go hand in hand together.
Yeah, it's the same thing. Ironman's just a brand, right? And that's the one everybody knows in terms of like the distance. When you say Ironman, it's the big, granddaddy of them all.
And so for you, growing up small town, fine performance, you've always been dedicated to excellence. You come out to Arizona then a little bit after that?
After college.
Okay.
Yeah, it was my first territory. I had Arizona and Las Vegas as a 23-year-old. So it was pretty fun.
What was the role?
I worked for a commercial flooring company at the time.
Okay.
And so I was selling to, any big end user that was here locally. General Dynamics was a big customer of ours. And then in Vegas, it was any casino was fair game.
And so you did somebody mentor you on how to be efficient at sales?
Yes. And I actually just had dinner with him 2 weeks ago here. And he was the best man at my wedding. After college, I went to Austin, Texas to train with him. And for a year, I was with him every day, night and day. I mowed his grass. I washed his cars. He's like, hey, this is what it's going to take to be successful in this business. You got to show up every day. And I was like, wait a minute, why am I mowing his grass? Why am I washing his cars? Why am I bringing his family breakfast in the morning? And it really, it showed me where I'm at in my stage now, running a business and people. Is like, it built the trust between us and that I would do anything, right? And then the sell was just a means to an end, right? But it was the trust that he and I built together, and it was a great partnership. And I was like, man, I want to do that again.
Did you have...
Not that I'm going to make kids wash cars, but...
I was going to say, my own Karate Kid vibes there, right? Did you feel a little wax on, wax off? It was that mentality.
We even had a conversation about it over dinner a couple of weeks ago. He's like, there's no way I could get away with doing that again. He goes, but it worked then, and I'm thankful for it every day that I had him as a mentor.
So that's amazing, teaching you the trust, the hard work. You were maybe in your mind questioning it a little bit, but you just did it.
I just went with it. I was like, this guy's super successful. They put me with him because they said, you two are going to get along really well. My RVP at the time said, that's who you need to train with. And they sent me around the country, learning from other people's ways too, but always came back to that. Like, that's what I'm going to model myself after. And he was super successful.
And how long did you do that role for?
A year. And then I came to Arizona and did it for 7 years. Yeah.
And so you're successful climbing the ladder.
Yep.
But what was there like something missing that this entrepreneurial inside you? Was it always?
Well, it was the fitness that was always calling for me, right? Like when you get into the corporate world, you see people that have been in the corporate life for a long time, and most of them are out of shape and they're not in shape. And that totally was not who I was. I didn't identify with that. So outside of work, I never hung out with those people, not because I felt or thought less. It was just that we didn't have the same like-minded interest, right? So I always felt myself gravitating towards a different pool of people. And I was just like, man, I was like, I really should be doing something in this space. And then slowly I started, getting more and more into the triathlon space, and met a guy, and he said, you should start a team, to do it with you. And I was like, okay. So I met this guy in Texas, and it was me and him. And he's like, no, like a big team. You should do like a big team. People will follow you, right? You have like a personality that people want to be around. And I think it took a couple of years to finally get out of my comfort zone. And so I put out an application, said, hey, if you want to join this race team, this is what we're doing. We're going to make it super pro. We're going to make it like everything you see the professional triathletes, we're going to have access to it. I'm going to give you access to it. And that was really appealing to a lot of age groupers who would never touch a podium in a triathlon, but they wanted to look like it. They wanted to play the part. And I was giving them that experience.
And so this is the first entree into what became Moxie.
Yes, right.
And was this team called Moxie?
It was Moxie Racing.
And so and this is important for business owners or people that are thinking about wanting to start something. The passion behind it, that's got to be, a lot of times that's not there, but for you, it's like the passion.
Yeah.
For me, getting up every day, whether I have a team or not, I'm going to be doing this training.
Yeah.
So having that passion first gets you motivated.
Well, I built the trust with the other people. Like, he's doing it. He's living it. I'm going to do it with him.
So what did that look like in the beginning? Were you so you have a club team?
Yeah, it was local to Austin, and we would do local events together. I would host a Thursday night ride at my house. We dubbed it a certain name based on the street that I lived on, and we would have a cookout on Thursday nights. Every standing Thursday, it was at my house, and I'm sure my neighbors at the time loved it. I'm not kidding, they didn't like it. There's cars everywhere, bikes everywhere, and we ran the neighborhood for the next 2 hours every Thursday night, and then we'd have a cookout. And so we created that family, belonging that people were looking for when they want to join something, right?
And the members of this club, were they a lot of successful business owners or successful type A executives, like all kind of in that
ran
same...
the gamut. We had, one of a big up from Dell was on our team that, had no business hanging out with a bunch of 20-year-olds, not from a standpoint of, we were just in different leagues at the time, but we all found a common bond around sport, which was really cool. And so I saw that the networking of that was pretty big, for having someone on a super high C-suite level to a kid right out of college, right? And we made a lot of connections. We had a lot of marriages come out of it, and a lot of business connections have come out of it. It was almost like a fitness Rotary club, if you will.
And were you making money at this point, or was it just
enough just to make it worth my while? It would pay for a race entry or something like that. At this point, I didn't have any grandiose to be like, oh, I'm going to turn this into the next $1 million idea. It was like, I like it. It's paying for my races. I'm good with it, right?
You still were doing another job at that point.
I still had a flooring job. Yeah, I'd moved back to Austin to take over the territory that my mentor had.
And Austin and Phoenix, very similar or is quite similar in the context of the performance-based culture there with the riding.
At that time, yes. Yeah, lots of cyclists in Austin at that time. This was before Austin turned into the behemoth that it is now, where every street has, semiconductor, companies on them.
It had some character to it back then.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it wasn't so corporate. It was more, down home feel.
And, we'll talk about your eye for branding and, building what you built with Moxie and Caffeine and Watts, that brand. Mm-hmm. Was that then with this Moxie bike team, that was your first, for you to get that vision out of, I've got this brand idea, and you started, I assume, developing the jerseys.
Yeah, I made all the gear, all the T-shirts, all the hats. And from a young age, going back to in Alabama, my first sale was selling T-shirts at high school. We saw a need for, the seniors would always have like this party, pre-prom bash, and they would sell T-shirts, only the seniors. And I'm like, well, that's dumb. Why wouldn't they sell it? I mean, when I was in 8th grade, I looked at those seniors like, man, I want that T-shirt bad, right? I'm not waiting until 12th grade to get this shirt. And so when we got 11th grade, we were like, we're going to take over making the T-shirts. And they were like, well, okay, great. So me and my buddy, who owns a lot of car dealerships, super successful, to this day, did it together, and that paid for our spring break. It paid for our summer trip. I mean, we sold T-shirts all the way down to 8th grade, and we were just slinging T-shirts. And that's kind of why I was like, wow. I was like, if you find something that people can get behind, you really got something to sell. So that's where selling started. And, he and I were the number one salespeople for, selling candy at school, right? It was a competition. How many candy bars can you sell, right? And it started way back then.
And do you think that is it innate, or is it something that can be trained?
To a certain extent, I think it can be brought out of people, but I think, you can walk in a room and just watch people and be like, yep, that person's got it, or yep, that person's got it, or no, that person doesn't have it, but they have other great skill sets that could be used in a different role, but doesn't need to be the point person for something, right? And at Moxie, at the race team, we had lots of different personalities, and that was really cool to see, because it could be someone that was never athletic in high school that all of a sudden was super good at triathlon. And I was like, holy cow, you can't even throw a baseball or shoot basketball, but man, you are quick, So they found their calling in different areas, and, there's different needs for different, personalities, I think.
And with you spending that time in Austin with all of these individuals, different career paths, different milestones of where they are in life. But a lot of times when we're in this performance-based culture where we're riding or running, we're talking, we're mentoring.
Oh, yeah.
The mentoring program there for you, of you teaching, but you learning, was that something that you saw, like, there's some real power to this?
I leaned on a lot of the executives that were on our team and would always ask questions like, how did you get there? What was your road to get to where you're at? And it was always different. No one had the same road, right? And so that was really interesting, because as I'm building the team and I'm thinking of the next thing that I want to do, I'm like, well, do I want to do my own thing? And maybe this is my marketing department that I'm building. And so for the next 6 years, I built that marketing department and built that trust and that loyalty of those people that when we would say we're going to do something, they'd all do it. And it's because they all wanted to do it together. And it's good and bad. Because when you stop that marketing department stops too, right? So as my needs changed over the years, it changed as well. But that's how I started the shop. I needed a marketing department to really prop up the store.
So the shop first started in Austin?
Here. Well, you can say that it started in my garage.
So Vision, it started in the garage in Austin.
Yeah, doing bike fits and, things like that out of my garage. And then slowly, met a guy that had a really successful shop in Austin, and he's a staple still in the community. I'm thankful enough that he took my call and said, yeah, I'll help you out. And I said, I want to do this. And he's like, well, I'm going to tell you not to. And if you still want to do it after I tell you not to, then I'll help you. And I said, I still want to do it. And he's like, okay, don't ever call me and say I didn't tell you not to do it.
We're calling you right after this show here. So how did Phoenix come to play then?
I lived here out of college. So my sister was here. They had a baby. My nephew was born here. My mom and dad were, splitting time between here and North Carolina. My father retired when I got married, and they moved here full time. And I was like, we had just had Maverick. He was 2, and I was like, man, we're really going to need the help if we're going to prop this store up in Arizona. And being that my father was big into cycling, he's like, I'd like to do something after I retire too. So he was interested in it. And I was like, all right, great. Let's do it. And, the rest is history. There's a lot of learning along the way. But yeah, this is where we started it.
And so that transition, because a lot of people that have this thought, this passion, they want to start a business, whether it be a retail side business with the performance base and the club attached to it, or they want to sell software and they want to build it. What was besides you being young and just like, I'm going to make this work, was there anything that you can look back before you said and signed the dotted line to say, I'm going to start a business? What was that, if you think back?
What made me want to do it?
Yeah, like what gave you the confidence?
Man, it's going to sound corny, but like I say, everybody takes a different path. I, at the time in Austin, had met, so it's going to be convoluted. I'm going to try to make it short, but the story of how Moxie was created was to build a race team in triathlon that had never been built before. The person that I partnered with to do this was a visionary entrepreneurial mindset as well. He created a clothing company, and they were making really cool clothing that was outlandish, and people were like, oh my gosh, this is not cookie cutter off the shelf. I want that, right? And people are eating it up, right? And I was like, well, I've got to stay in my lane. I've got to keep Moxie cool, right? And that's what's going to bring people in. And so I would use him as my manufacturer. We would make a new design every year. And then this is when videos just started happening, like the content, right? The YouTube stuff. And I saw a video that Lululemon was making in Austin, Texas. And I was like, man, I want to meet the guy that made this video because I need something like this for Moxie. And so I call him up out of the blue, met him at a Starbucks in Austin. We met over coffee. And 2 days later, he's on a plane with me going to Oceanside, California for the 70.3 race. And that was really like the liftoff of, oh crap, this Moxie team they're legit, right? They got pro videos. We were doing it all right. And we looked bigger than what we were at the time. And I knew that was when I did that video with Zach, and I want to say his name, Zach Zlatic, is well above his, it was well above my pay grade for what he did for me, right? And I'm forever grateful. But what he did was then introduce me to his now wife that worked at Lululemon, and they would have like these breakouts at people's houses where they would, goal setting and things like that. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll go to it. And I tell Alicia I'm going to go to this Lululemon thing with all these girls at this girl's house with this guy that I just met at Starbucks. And she's like, what? She's like not getting it either. And I didn't really know what I was getting myself into. And we're all sitting around like kumbaya, wasn't big into yoga, but I was big into learning, right? And Zach was like, you got to come to this. This is really going to help you like figure out what you're going to do next with Moxie. And that night I got asked, what's keeping you from doing it? And I said, it's the money. They're like, you can get money. Give us another reason, right? Give us another reason why you don't want to do it. And I was like, what's the security of not having that corporate check every month, right? And they're like, okay, well, you can make another check. So what else is there, right? And I was like, they're like, it's nothing, right? Like nothing's stopping you from doing it. And it was that night I went home to Alicia and said, I'm going to do it. And that was the tipping point for me.
And I assume she was supportive.
Oh, yeah.
Go.
Yeah, a little apprehensive. Yeah, like, you sure you can't do both?
Because Maverick's 2 at this time?
Yeah, and we had just been married for a year and a half, so this is all new, and she's like, oh my gosh, I just walked into something that's about to be totally brand new. And yeah, she was ready to go on the ride with me, and she believed in, what I could do and that I would be successful at it, at whatever I did. And so that really meant a lot, that I knew that I chose the right person, right? And I got the right person in my corner, because if had I not, it could have been over before it started. Yeah. To be honest with you.
Yeah, she knew she was going on an adventure with you, just didn't know what the direction was going to be.
Yeah.
And so this is what, around 2015?
Yeah, it's like 2015. Yeah.
Okay. So you're good at sales, you're good at building a team culture and aligning people together.
Mm-hmm.
Never run a retail shop before.
Never.
So what do you do? What's the steps there?
Yeah, it's a lot.
What does that look like?
It's a lot. I worked in retail and growing up, different jobs during high school and stuff, but I never ran the back end of it to see what it was, right? And so it was a big learning curve to set up all your lines and know what you're going to carry, when you're going to carry it, when you need to get rid of it, how many days you can hold it. And I tell people that are like, I want to start a bike shop or whatever. And I was like, listen, people that start bike shops that like the bike shop idea because they like to ride bikes, that usually doesn't work out. You need to be in the shop. And I liked running the shop more than I liked riding my bike. And I think that's why it's worked for so long. And that I was business first, ride my bike second. And sometimes that hurts you because you're not out riding your bike with your customers. You're running your business. But at the same time, it's hard to do everything, right? And I really focused on the business side of it.
And with the experience, so you cultivated the relationships and being a writer for those years, and with the team you had, you started having relationships and with the manufacturers. So I know Cervelo had been a big piece of Moxie.
Yeah.
So that was helpful, though. You weren't having to start from scratch and
right.
Who do I call?
Yeah.
What bikes do these triathletes need?
Yeah. We went straight to the number one, bike in triathlon and said, we'd like to carry your brand. And it was just timing's everything. They were ready to walk out from another place that they were at. They wanted fresh looks on their stuff, and we just happened to come to market at the right time.
Do they give you at that point an exclusive in the Metro Phoenix area?
For a certain radius, for a certain amount of time, and then as retail has shrunk and gotten tighter, those lines are, pretty small now.
And you've got a big, beautiful shop up, and I've only known you since 2020.
Mm-hmm.
What was it? Where was it in 2015, 2016?
It was in my garage until December of 2016, we took over that space. And then 2017 to Mother's Day, we remodeled it and then opened it back up Mother's Day of 2017.
So you were in the garage like Steve Jobs.
Yeah.
You were in the garage.
Yeah, Moxie started in the garage, yeah.
So what you had a bunch of bikes there, like in the house, and it was people would come to my first
bike sale was out of it would have been out of my home office. I had not moved here yet from Austin. We were still waiting to sell our house, and I sold the first bike from Austin in Phoenix to, one of my friends on the team. Mm-hmm. But that was really what propped us up, was that team of racers of 150 people that were like eager to buy whatever I was selling, because they trusted me and they knew that I would do it right and do right by them.
And the disposable income that a lot of these triathletes have.
Yes.
And then the other fact is that, every 2 years or so, they want to get an upgrade.
Yeah, that was really, really big from 2017 to 2020, when COVID started. And that's when that shift stopped.
Yeah. And we'll talk about how that you got, in any business, there's different pivots. Mm-hmm. For yours, it's not only running a company, knowing how to deal with the employees that you have, but mm-hmm. then things change in an industry, or in this case, they can move quickly. But in those first few years, then we're getting up and running. You've got your marketing is, I assume, the beginning was still that focusing on the team.
Yeah, the brand of the team,
having everybody feel like they're part of something.
That's big. Right. Yeah, and then when we came into town, there were other teams that were local to Arizona, and it was either separate my store from my own team, or say, no, we've got the best team in town. Let's just go all in and see if it just blows up in our face, or if this other team is bigger than what we thought they were, right? And looking back, I could have done it both ways, but I said, you know what, I want to be everybody's team. I'm the bike shop, right? I want to be the best bike shop that I can be to all of these people. And that's why I started Moxie, is that when you would walk into a normal bike shop and you wouldn't give them a 5-star review. You're like, you barely get talked to sometimes or say hello to. And I'm about to drop 10 grand on a bicycle. I want somebody to say hello, and give me a little bit of their time, right? And so from coming from a high-end commercial job, I was like, man, we would court these people. We would take them to golf. We would take them to steak dinners. We really want to get to know these people because we want their business for life. And I took that same philosophy when Cervelo came out with the new P5s, and I took a group to Mastro's. And I think it was 10 people that were in town. I called them and I said, hey, we got this new bike coming out. I can't show it to you before this night, but if you come to this dinner, you'll have your first chance to buy this bike before anybody in town does. And we sold everybody at that table a bike that night. And I was like, okay, I'm doing it the right way. I'm not going to just be the normal mom and pop bike shop. I want to really deliver a higher value to these people, which you should.
Yeah, a community.
Yeah.
About purpose and passion.
Yeah.
And it's always like, even when I walked, I wish I got into riding and cycling a lot 20 years ago, but coming into your shop, referred from good friends, and you guys were so welcoming, mm-hmm. and that, get that at all the places.
Well, I hope that you felt that when you came in, and I feel that you're as good as what someone says about you, right? Our reviews are really good, but what are the people saying that don't give the review, right? That means more to me. Not that I don't want the reviews, but I want to know what someone's saying that's not willing to put the review up. Is it good? Are they going to tell their 10 friends that, man, yeah, they may not have everything that you need, but they'll find you anything you need, right? And that's kind of how we cut our teeth in the market.
In those first 3-4 years, things were moving ahead, doing well, but what type of challenges did you face as now you're this entrepreneur, you're this accidental business owner, tied into something that you love doing in community, but what were some of those challenges that you faced?
To scale it was the hardest thing, scaling it and having the means to be like, well, do you do 2 spaces now? And you do prop up another one? We had a chance to get in on a business in Colorado. It was too early in our infancy stage of owning the business to be like, well, do we want double the overhead and double the commitments to lines of credit? And glad I didn't, looking back, but it was very appealing that someone thought enough of what we were doing to be like, you should run our shop too. Like, we need this in our space. And I was just like, oh, I'd love to be in 2 places at once, but I can't. I really want to make this work, right? And so I went all in on that. And the challenges were not only to scale it, but it was finding that customer every 2 years that's going to spend the 10 grand, right? And come in and get a new bike. We have 5.5 million people that live in like this state. So it's like, there should be no shortage of customers to come in, right? And then it's like, how do you reach all those customers, right? We do tons of like outreach and mailers and Facebook and Instagram, and it's just like, it never seems enough. Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah, and the one thing that you've done over the years too is got people into the shop, and you guys will do like a little, maybe some wine.
Yeah.
And teach them how to,
Change a flat.
Like, even an experienced rider, sometimes they don't know how to change a flat.
You would be surprised. We just had Ironman Arizona, and we had people that had no idea how to change a flat, and they were really hopeful that we were going to tell them that they weren't going to have a flat on an Ironman race. I'm like, I wish I could tell you that. I wouldn't be working in this shop.
And that was the other thing you've done. You aligned yourself to the races that were in town, but then also going out to races in Colorado or other parts of the country.
Yep. Well, as a race team, we would go as a group. And then once I stood up Caffeine and Watts, then I would travel as a vendor and set up shop in the villages to sell the Caffeine and Watts brand to get it started.
So let's talk about Caffeine and Watts, because I love that brand. I think it's just strong in push watts, branding behind it. How did that take, where did that come from? Where that experience for you to build it?
In Austin, my wife and I were like, people that ride bikes that are cyclists, true cyclists, are not triathletes, and triathletes are not true cyclists, I would say, right? You can morph into one or the other, but you really are either going to associate with the cycling crowd or the triathlon crowd. And if you do both, you're an anomaly, right? Because most of the times they're going to be a pro athlete that does that, right? Not your age group, but that's going to be really high-end cyclist, really high-end triathlete, and they go in both groups, right? I can only think about 6 in town that are able to do that, going from a triathlon race to the Gainey ride and still holding their own, right? And on both bikes and meshing in both circles. So I told Alicia, I was like, we need to create a brand that reaches every bike rider. And I had started coaching at the time, and, it was all about wattage and how you measure that. And, if you can measure it, you can better it type thing. And I was like, watts. And I was like, we're always like pushing watts. And I was like, oh, that could be something. I really like coffee. And so then I was like, well, I think Caffeine and Watts. And so I scripted it up, and I had somebody on, I can't remember, it was like somebody local in Austin, I can't remember his name, that drew up the first cursive little logo that we made. And I thought I had something. I was like, oh, this is really cool. And then someone that knew something about, design, they're like, Blake, you don't have an icon mark. Like, how are you going to put that on a shirt? They're like, it always has to be big script. And I was like, well, that's okay until people know what it is to say the whole name, right? And then a couple of years went by, and someone's like, you should really pay the money for someone like to make a brand for you. And I reached out to a gentleman in the UK that I just loved his work and said, hey, would you take a shot at this? And he's like, yeah, if you pay me, right? And I was like, oh my gosh, this is the most I've ever paid for a logo. And Alicia's like, you sure you want to pay that much money? And I was like, yeah, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it right? And we've gotten so much traction from that brand and that mark. It's crazy. And to have him do it now, because I wanted him to redo the Moxie brand, and it was like 10x what I paid for Caffeine and Watts. And I was like, I think I'm good. I think I'll leave Moxie alone.
Moxie is good. We'll change it to bike instead of multi-sport.
That's right, yeah.
But that brand, what years are we talking about with Caffeine and Watts that you really started?
2015, I believe I started it. And 2017, I believe we created Mark for it. From the gentleman in the UK.
Yeah, because in listeners that aren't in the cycling community, watts are important, but you got to have your coffee in the morning. That's
a ritual. It's a lifestyle.
Because we're getting up early.
Yeah,
getting up at 4:30, and you got to have. So you built the brand around that, and then the jerseys. Did that come after you started establishing the coffee side of things?
Yeah, it was the gear came first. Coffee didn't come to market until I was here. And so it was, I don't need to pick this thing out of here. It was 2019, I believe. Met a guy on an airplane that owned a coffee company in Louisville, Kentucky, and said, we're the #1 small batch roaster. I'd love to help you if you ever have any.
You're just on a plane with somebody striking conversation.
Yeah. I had the Caffeine and Watch shirt on. He's like, what's that? Yeah. He's like, I'm in the coffee business. What's this about? And I told him, and he's like, I'd love to help, love to be a part of that. I love the idea. And I was like, all right, great. And so to this day, he's the one that makes our coffee.
And it's damn good coffee.
It's really good.
It's good stuff.
It's really good.
It has to be good.
Yeah.
It has to be good.
Yeah. And people are like, why don't you do it local? And I was like, to go through the whole like tasting and the roasting, and I've got people that are on subscription to it, to all of a sudden change it on them. I'm just like, I don't want to take that risk, to rebrand everything and say, okay, now here's your new bean. It's, the same thing. And they're like, that's not the same.
And so that model then morphed into, you were getting subscribers monthly, coffee.
Yep. That's when subscriptions kind of came on board in, 2019, 2020. It started being like everything's subscription based. I mean, now more than ever, right? But I was trying to get into that realm of like, what could be the next thing that kind of puts the next business on the map for me, and that was the coffee side of things.
Yeah, and the clients of yours that already trust you, that are coming in on sometimes a monthly basis.
Yep.
Because with bikes, always things are they're not allowed to do-it-yourselfers.
Yeah.
So they need to come into the shop.
Yeah.
And then it's making that experience for them. Hey, have a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
And then maybe buy this coffee.
Yeah. Or take a bag home with you and tell us what you think,
And the other thing you've been great at, because I buy a lot of different jerseys over the years, but whether it's Moxie or Caffeine and Watts, your gear is second to none.
Yeah.
Why? Because what you want. You know what you want to wear, right?
I've always said if I won't wear it, I'm not going to sell it. And to a fault sometimes, right? Like a lot of people are like, well, I don't need a $220 pair of bibs. Like I can get a $50 pair on Amazon. I'm like, that's great, but it's not going to feel the same. And if you're going for the experience that we want to sell you, then this is what it is. And there's different experiences for everyone, and not everybody wants to be on your same experience level, and that's fine too, right? But for the people that do, we offer a great experience, whether it's our clothing, our coffee, our service in our shop. It's all on the same level. And I remember I spoke at a Slow Twitch forum. Slow Twitch is a big brand in cycling. Is where everybody goes to get their gossip and their news on products and stuff. And they asked me to speak at a triathlon conference. And I remember saying on the stage, I was like, we don't have a sale rack. And I never will have a sale rack. I was like, if it doesn't sell, we're just going to give it away, right? I'm not going to sell it. I'm not going to devalue my brand by marking it down to $10. Please take my product, right? Because everybody's going to be like, well, I'm just going to wait.
Yeah.
I'll wait till that goes to $10, right? And that's why when we make custom things, it's only so many of the custom thing, and then it's gone. So that's how Lululemon used to do it when they first started. It was like you saw that yellow shirt that you really wanted, and if you didn't get it by the weekend, they're out, and they're not making it anymore, and they're on to the next color.
Yeah, and one of the disadvantages of making such a good quality product is that those jerseys last so long.
I know.
I mean, I've had some since 2021 and wear them all the time.
Yeah, and it's good and bad. And I say the same thing with our tune-ups. I was like, he does such a good job cleaning someone's bike that they're like, I don't need to come back into your shop, right? It's like, I just don't need to come in there.
Right.
And I'm like, man, I really like you to come back, And so then that morphed into selling memberships to our service department, right?
Yeah. So that's as you become trying to learn the revenue landscape of things, you start figuring out, okay, yeah, bikes, it's expensive.
Yeah.
So we don't have, the same person who's $10,000 bike, they're not maybe 3 or 4 years until they buy another one.
Yeah.
But with regards to the membership or setting it up where, hey, we're going to pay this subscription.
Yeah.
And you're going to get your bike fully tuned up 3 times a year.
Yeah.
Well, there you're guaranteeing some revenue. And you're guaranteed that they stay coming into your shop.
That's right. They're not going somewhere else
to buy some other stuff.
That's right. Or at least they get to see us again, right? And it reminds them of why they came in the first place. And then they maybe go on a ride with you on the weekend and say, oh my gosh, I was in Moxie this Friday. You should go check it out. And you're like, I already do, man, right? Or someone that hasn't seen us is like, oh, I'll go check them out. I didn't know they worked on those types of bikes, right? Because we have the stigma that we only work on triathlon bikes, which we do. But our mechanic, he's second to none.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And looking back, because you were so tied into the triathlon community, that was that impactful of like being a negative.
Yeah.
Or it's like, you know what, I'm not a triathlete, so I'm not going to go there.
That's correct. Yeah, it pigeonholed us big time.
But it's like that chicken or the egg. You needed that because that's what you.
That's what I started.
Trust you had.
Yep.
But then over the last few, and we'll before we get into the kind of the change and how you're more to that general and even e-bikes.
Yeah.
In any business, we get affected by things, and obviously COVID was a big challenge.
Yeah.
And it wasn't so much that people didn't, you had the customers.
Yeah.
People wanted to ride because that's all we could do.
Right.
What was the challenge?
The price point of the bike. For us, we were a high-end bike shop, and these people that had not ridden a bike since they were 8 years old wanted to ride again, and they wanted to ride for $300. And I was like, well, that's half of what our tune-ups are. So I was like, we're not your shop, right? And it's hard to say to turn away somebody that wants to get into cycling. And so we had to pivot really quick to try to find a lower end brand that we could sell very quickly and get that equipment. And I think they had a couple of containers land, and we were able to, peel off 20, 30 bikes. But people are coming in daily looking for $200, $300 bicycles, and we just were not that
sticker shock them. Yeah, and it is a big investment.
Yeah,
for somebody that isn't, maybe going to ride them the way that you and I ride.
Right. Yeah. So we a lot of people think that we made out like bandits during COVID. We didn't. Our shop did. Yeah. If we were like the normal weekend warrior shop, we could have crushed it. We had 2 containers pull up out back with just tons of bikes in it and just unloading them after, one after another. But again, that dries up, right? That's transactional business, and those customers aren't coming back. The ones that we did sell, I've never seen one of those bikes back in my shop again. They're not our customer, right? They were a customer, but they're not our customer.
And then some of the other things is COVID moved into 21, 22, then there became a supply chain issue.
That's correct.
So we had the customers, I want a new bike.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, great.
Yeah.
I can get you one.
Yeah, that's right. I can get you one in 9 months. Can you give me $10,000 to sit on it? They're like, no, not at all.
So it's like, how running a business is hard as it is, and then we throw that into the mix.
Mm-hmm.
What did you do?
Prayed.
Yeah,
prayed a lot. Had a lot of hard conversations with our staff about how many hours we could have and what we were going to carry on the floor going forward, what was available to sell, and how to try to. It really challenged the sales staff to have to sell on something that they couldn't sell. They're selling an experience, 100% an experience without the thing to experience it on, right? And trying to hold that customer for 6 to 7 months and their money without them saying, you know what, I've changed my mind. I want my money back. Because in our business, we're using that money to roll over something else, right? And so it really was about the communication with the team. Like, hey, I need you to reach out every 2 weeks to these customers. And we had them on a piece of paper to be like, hey, Mr. Such and Such or Miss Such and Such, just want to let you know, we still have your name here. We're still tracking it. Just want to let you know we're still here too for you, right? Okay, thank you so much. And the ones that we didn't, of course, they wanted they were done with the sale. The euphoria of buying that new bike had left because they got no new bike, right? They didn't get a bike.
Yeah.
And so it was really hard to sell air. And
no matter how good of a sales you train your team.
Yeah, it was really hard to sell air, and that's all we were selling.
Yeah.
And so then it really shaped how we did our floor plan after that, right? Because then we're like, well, should we sell catalog, right? D2C's propped up really big everywhere. Retail everywhere's taking a hit, right? So not even us. I think Verizon today laid off over 2,000 people in their retail locations. So if a behemoth like that's having layoffs, imagine what your local store's feeling, right? In terms of, can we have a floor plan like a car dealership, right? And the bike industry is not set up like that. When we bring a bike in, we've already paid for it, and we got 90 days to get rid of it. And then when you got 15 or 20 of them on your floor, that's a chunk of change to get rid of. That's due. So yeah, it really enabled us to try to pivot to think about how we do our floor plan, how we're going to sell. And maybe it's helping that there's D2C business because they're having the same struggles, right? Like a D2C brand, they don't service the bike. If there's an issue, you're calling a customer service number that doesn't have a human on the other end of it. But if we sell one and we're calling ourselves like indirect to consumer, right? You're ordering it from us. We're ordering it from our supplier and it's coming back into our shop, but then we're your shop. So if there's an issue with it, we fix it. You don't have to call up customer service and speak to no one. And I think we've sold 4 in the last 2 months just on people sending their bikes back to D2C and buying it from us because we solved their D2C issue with the service. I think slowly it's going to come back, but I don't know that it'll ever come back quick enough to really prop up the local bike shops the way it should.
When you're going through some of these trials and tribulations, are there other owners of bike shops across the country? Do you guys have like masterminds? And
Some you speak with, and you would think there would be more, right? Because everyone's in the same boat, but it's really fragmented.
So fragmented that
yeah. I do have some buddies in Texas and in Colorado that I speak with about their struggles and how they're having successes too. And it's different in every market, what they deal with, and it's still the stigma that bike shops have because typically a bike shop was owned by someone that really liked to ride a bike, and they're like, well, you come in, you're my buddy, $10. Andrew, you're good. And then that happens over a decade, another decade. And then it gets so devalued, the service that you offer on a $10,000 bike that you're like, it's $15 to change a flat? Like, yeah. You have a very complex bike, right? You've got disc brakes on it now. You don't want to change it. Came to us to do it, right? We have all of this overhead in here. I think it's worth $15, right? Yeah. But you're willing to pay $9 for a cup of coffee, right? But you're not willing to do an actual labor of something that's really expensive on a bike that if it goes wrong, it could be even more expensive, right? So that stigma's been hard to overcome as well in the space.
And what about the just performance-based communities, your teams? Like, what kind of evolution have you seen over the last 10 years? Like, where's it headed?
Hey, that's a good question. With Ironman Arizona that just wrapped up this past weekend, it only had 1,200 people at it, and it was the last one that they're going to have in Arizona. There will not be another Ironman Arizona in the foreseeable future.
And what was the reason on that?
What's the reason that Tempe gives? That the infrastructure and everything is too much. The real reason is probably something to do with them and the reservation. I'm not in those conversations, so I can't speak 100%, but I know that it's gone. I can say that. And I can say that it only sold halfway of what it usually sells out to. Usually it's 22 to 2,500 racers. It was at 1,200, 1,300 racers. And it was the last one that they marketed, right? You'd think, oh, everybody's coming into town. It's the last hurrah. Everybody's over it.
So you think is it just a shift?
I think it's a shift in that when COVID happened, it let a lot of people know that train 12 to 13 hours for these endurance sports that, well, I got 12 to 13 hours back. I can do a lot of things now that there's not a race to do. I can do cross-country mountain biking. That's what I picked up. You know, when COVID happened, I never did a triathlon again. I just did mountain biking because the races were available and they were open. A lot of people went in the trail running because trail running was open. But Ironman was shut down for almost a year and a half. And then when they opened back up, it was so regimented with restrictions and how you had to come into transition and, you know, masking and all that. People were just over it. They're just like, this is outside. Just let us exercise, right? And so, yeah, it really had a big mass exodus of the sport happened. And I don't think it's going to recover from it. There's too many other cool things to do now from.
You see like the Belgian waffle that's experienced growth.
Yeah.
And people love it.
Yeah, I think the off-road stuff has really grown. I think the being hit on a bicycle is a very real thing. And owning a bike shop, we see a lot of people that, you know, get hit.
Probably monthly.
Yeah, they get hit on a bicycle. And for me, having a young family, I'm like, I don't want to get hit on a bicycle. So I got into mountain biking. And my wife really enjoys me mountain biking as opposed to riding on the streets. And a lot of people have that same sentiment where they're like, you know what, if I ride gravel, I'll never see a car. I may see like a side-by-side, but I'm not going to see a car.
Yeah, there was about a month ago when that big rain was coming in. We were all the way out by 9 Mile, bunch of us riding down Pima. It's a torrential downpour. Finally get to Kierland. Some of the guys are just like, wives are calling, like, what are you doing, honey? Like, and some guys took an Ubers home, and I'm like, well, I'm going to cut but it was like the risk we're taking.
Yes.
Pima's dangerous as it is, let alone when it's
under sunny skies.
Yeah. So it's like that's the one thing about the cycling sport. It's so great, but you have so many variables that are out of your control.
Yeah. And you know, when a 3,000-pound car hits you, it's like it's not the same as falling over on a rock on a mountain bike, you know.
Especially now they're texting and driving and it's like all the things. That's why get out as early as possible.
Yeah.
So as you look at this evolution of Caffeine and Watts and where you want it to go, what's that look like if you could create a vision here the next few years? Yeah,
you know, you and I have even spoke about this in the shop, like, you know, what do you want to do with it? And I've always said, you know, I think it's going to be the same conversation I had at Lululemon, you know, in that little powwow. It's like, you know, it is money at this point because it's going to take a lot of money to market it and stand up against these other companies that are, I mean, there's tons of coffee brands, right? Yeah. And yes, ours stands apart in its own ways, but to really tell the story, it's going to need high-end video. It's going to need storytelling. It's going to need people getting behind it. It's going to recreating that whole team again, right? Of a following of people that are really passionate about that brand. And there are people that are really passionate about it, but it needs to be, you know, 100x to move the needle to really make it like, oh, somebody's going to put this in a standalone building and make it a bike/coffee shop and where it's like it's wrapped in community. That's where I see it going.
Yeah. It's almost like what Rafa tried to do.
Yeah.
With their clubhouses.
That's right. Yeah.
But there's, you know, they've got a lot of money behind.
Well, they've got Walmart money. Yeah.
They got, so it's,
but it would take that type. It doesn't take that type of money, but having that type of money wouldn't hurt to prop one up. And, you know, if a Caffeine and Watts popped up in Bentonville, Arkansas, it would crush it. Yeah. You would crush it from the gear to the coffee to just the experience of someone walking out of there being like, oh my gosh, yeah, Caffeine and Watts, this is too cool, right? This is right in cycling. I feel like in cycling, there are other brands of coffee that are in the cycling space, but if you put all 5 of them or 6 of them on the shelf together, I mean, I'm biased, but they can't hold a candle to the branding that we have. Now it's just a story that needs to come with it. Yeah.
And as we start closing, as looking back this last 10 years of being a business owner, running the brand and running the company and teams, what's 1 or 2 things that you can look at that you didn't know that you wish you did know?
Oh man. Knowing that building that leaving the team that I built, not leaving that because I didn't leave the business, but when I stopped racing, had I known that was going to be the catalyst of a lot of my business, right? Just going because if Blake's not racing, why do I need to race? I don't need to race anymore. I didn't know that I had that much of an impact on people. And had I known that, I don't know what I would have done differently. Maybe sell at that time, right? Because it's at its highest point, right? To be like, I'm going to exit out on top. So if you could go look in hindsight's 2020, right? Like, yeah, that's one thing I would have looked at a little harder to be like, because I was just so like, I'm done. And me and Alicia, I didn't really give it much thought. And she's like, what do you think the team's going to keep going? I was like, yeah, they're going to keep doing triathlon. I just don't want to do it anymore. I don't want to get hit by a car. And that's honestly the reason I stopped. I did not want to get hit by a car. I mean, we see people every month coming in just mangled up. And I'm like, that's going to be me. I don't want that to be me. And so then if you're not out there in it, then that hurts, and then the other thing would be maybe leaning more into the relationships on that C-suite side earlier in my exit out of corporate America to prop up, Caffeine and Watts. I think that is the golden goose, I think, over the bike shop and the community that I built with the bike shop. I'm very proud of what we built at Moxie and very proud to be able to look online and be like all the nice things that people say. And if anything ever happens and you're like, oh, that's my legacy that I left in the market, I can look back at that and be like, that's pretty good. I learned a lot.
No, that's well said.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing too, beyond you just not wanting to get injured, but it's also as we get older too, it's hard, you got Mav growing up.
Yeah.
We're getting older.
Yeah.
I don't want to run 15 miles in a day.
Yeah.
My knees hurt.
Yeah.
Or my hips hurt. It's just, so it's that, you build something based on that trust factor. And then if you're out of it, I can see where that, you don't.
Yeah. Your interest changed. Yeah. My interest changed, right? And being that I'm in the interest of bikes, if your interest changes, it's like, well, it still needs to be around bikes somehow. Yeah.
But look at, building 2 brands, building communities in 2 different cities in retail.
Yep.
Those are all hard things to do.
Yeah. Very hard.
Very proud of you. You look back what you've accomplished and, where it's going to head and dealing with the changing of an industry and, people's goals shift and things you can't control.
Right. Yeah. And we talk about that in mental performance with my son's baseball team. They have a mental performance coach. And the other night they had to write down things they can control and can't control. And, I told him, I said, I do the same thing in our business, bud. When people come in, they're having a bad day. I can't control that. I can only control what we tell them, and how we make them feel. And Alicia tells Maverick this all the time. Like, you're only going to be remembered how you made people feel. Right. And I think that we do a good job of making people feel really good in our shop. Not going to be the cheapest product that you buy, but you should feel really good walking out of there.
I vouch for that. I've never felt shitty walking out of your store. I've always felt good.
That's good.
So if as the last question, if Mav, as he gets older, he comes to you and said, Dad, I want to be an entrepreneur. What would you say to him?
Man, go in with all 10 toes, man. Do it. Don't wait until you're in your late 30s to do it, right? Do it as soon as you can. And he asked me the other day, he's like, hey, civil engineers make $140,000. I was like, where did you see that at? He goes, I looked it up online at school. And I was like, well, why does that have any significance of what you think you want to do? Do you know what a civil engineer does? And he's like, no, but I know if I made 140, I could hunt, I could fish, I could do this. And I was like, buddy, I love where your head's at. I was like, but you can do a lot more than that. And I was like, and with what you're learning, I said, you're going to have the world at your fingertips. And it's just about, remember, like when you go to market, it's how you make people feel, right? So whatever you're selling, whatever you're doing, I said, just keep that front of mind. And I said, you're going to be successful, whatever you do.
And having them come into the shop and see how you interact with your with the employees and with the people that come in, your clients, that's something that he'll remember.
Oh, it's
20 years from now.
Yeah, it's invaluable. Yeah, it's invaluable. And he already wants to sell stuff, right? And he's like, can I sell this? Can I sell that? How much do you think we can get for it? So it's cool to see that he wants to come into the shop. He's really interested in what our mechanic does, which is really neat. You know, he's like, I want to learn everything. You know, I want to know everything he knows. And I was like, okay, great. Come to the shop. He'll tell you everything.
Yeah.
So it's really cool that he's like embracing it and not staying away from it. But I thought you were going to ask me, what if he comes to you and says, Dad, let's do an Ironman?
What are you going to do then?
Oh, no. I think you're going to have to come back to me and ask me that question.
Yeah. You'll just take some peptides. You'll be fine.
Yeah. I did tell him that if he wanted to do Leadville when he was 16, that I would sign up and do Leadville with him again. That I really, like, that was probably his first race that he remembers me doing. And for him to have tears in his eyes when I finished, I was like, man, it meant something to him to be there in that moment. And it meant something, of course, for me too. And I was like, I'd love to do that with him one day.
And for the audience that doesn't know Leadville, just real high level, go through how grueling it is.
Yeah, 105 miles at 10,000 feet. So you start off with zero oxygen, right? You can't breathe. And then they're like, hey, do this under 11 hours and we'll give you this belt buckle. You do it under 9 hours, we'll give you this belt buckle. And that's what you're racing for.
A belt buckle.
Yes. Not even a place on a podium, but just a belt buckle.
That's that belt buckle. People that have gone through that tested themselves, they look at that belt buckle more than a lot of things.
Yes.
They cherish it.
Yeah.
Cherish it.
I would say that someone said, well, how did it rank on things that you've done endurance-wise? I was like, at the top. It's 1, 2, right? Like Kona in 2012 was probably my proudest, like fittest that I've ever been. And then doing Leadville is probably the second.
You're still looking good.
Yeah, thanks, man.
And as we end, I just want to thank you and your team for, welcoming me into the community.
Yeah.
Getting in 2020. I actually bought one of Blake's bikes. Was my first bike that I bought.
My personal bike.
And this was a big purchase for me. And he gave me a great deal on it. But once I started riding and going in there and meet your crew and then the cyclists that are out there, it's such an investment. So whether it's cycling or whatever it may be that keeps your body and your mind focused and that energy. And for me, cycling is that thing. So I appreciate you making it easy for me to step into this world.
Yeah.
And you got me a sick bike.
Yeah.
And then I did become a repeat customer a few years later.
Yeah.
And we're loving it out there. So appreciate that. And appreciate all you guys are doing.
Yeah.
Well, this has been great. Lots of good nuggets here that I took, that the audience will take, and we're looking forward to seeing what the next chapters will be with your brands and whatever else you have planned. So thanks for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
See you all under the rose. Happy planning, everybody. And we'll have a brand new episode of Your Wealth and Beyond a little later this month. Thanks.